there's this man, okay, a young guy, like a teenager, okay, and he wakes up one winter morning, and he realizes how cold it is outside. He lays back in his bed and thinks, man, it would be nice to lay back down and just sleep here all day. So as he rolls back his covers back over his head, he starts hearing this voice, hey, Eric, come on, let's get up. He starts looking around. He knows there's nobody else in the house. So he starts hitting himself on the side of the head until he's sure that he's definitely awake. So he still keeps hearing this voice. Eric, come on, we got a full day ahead of us, let's get up. So he throws the covers off, by now forgetting how cold it is, and runs into the bathroom and looks in the mirror. And this little face, resembling a human face, is on the top of his forehead. Needless to say, he's pretty shocked. But he knows he has to go to school anyway, so he goes ahead and packs up and goes to school, very terribly embarrassed. So while he's at school, nobody says anything, but he notices that everybody else in the school is wearing hats. He'd never noticed that before. While he's sitting around this lunchroom, somebody mentioned to him, that he had a growth on his head, and he said, yeah, I guess I do. And he says, well, everybody else has one too. I said, oh, really? This is in the cafeteria lunchroom. One of the guys goes, yeah, but I know the psychiatrist that can help you. He goes, okay. And so he gives him the number, and he goes outside and calls him right there. Makes an appointment for right after school. So right after school, he runs to the psychiatrist and tries to find out some cure for this growth on his head that's talking to him. Of course, the growth didn't want to be here. This little growth's kind of ticked that he's had to go to the psychiatrist. So he goes to the psychiatrist and he asked him, what kind of cure can you give me for this? He says, well, there's several cures I can give you. Each of them costs $15, but I'll give you the first one this time, and this one will probably nip it in the bud if you can handle it. So he goes through and he says, pretend that it's not there. Just keep telling yourself, growth's not there. So Eric walks out, pretending that it's not there, Walking by, you can imagine how it looked, walking by, there's nothing on my head, there's nothing on my head, there's nothing on my head. This little guy is talking to him, you can't do it, Eric, you can't do it. I'm not talking to anything on my head, there's nothing on my head. But the little guy starts getting bigger and growing, and Eric's, it's starting to hurt a little bit up there. And it's starting to grow a little bit. So he goes back to the psychiatrist and says, man, I couldn't handle that. I kept telling myself, I didn't think it was there, but it just kept talking to me. So you got another cure for me? Psychiatrist says, yeah, sure. Just blame it on your parents. After all, you didn't get the disease. You inherited it. You didn't want it. Just go off and blame it on other people. So he runs home, marches straight in the kitchen and sees his mom, and just marches in there and just lets her have it, lays it all on her. It felt pretty good, too. He's thinking, man, that felt good. So he's sitting around, and his dad comes home from work, and he nails him, too. Just gets all over him. Thought, man, that felt good. And just for good measure, he went to a couple of his neighbors and let them have it there. But eventually, he started blaming everybody, and it didn't cover up anything. It started getting more and more painful. He had to start taking aspirins and stuff, So he went back to the doctor, and he says, man, this thing's growing, and it's getting more painful, and blaming it on people didn't help. He says, you got another cure for me? He says, sure, just cover it up. So he goes, and he says, go get some hats and just cover it up. And so he goes straight to Walmart, gets a bunch of stocking caps, puts it on, and the little girl's trying to talk, but you can't really hear him, because it's like, come on, let's go, So, he thinks, well, this works pretty good. So he goes through school wearing this stocking cap. But the thing keeps growing and stuff, and so one day he puts the stocking cap on, and he just puts it on, and it just rips straight open. Because the guy's so big, so he thought, man, guess I'll have to get a bigger hat, huh? Goes to Walmart and gets one of these big top hats, like 5 feet tall or something. And so he goes there, and he puts it on, and says, man, this ought to work pretty good. Only one problem. Whenever the voice kind of echoes through it, and it kind of enunciates it a little bit more, so it's going, Eric, come on, Eric, let's get out of here. But Eric wears it anyways, because it covers it up a little bit, so. But eventually he decides, well, that's just too loud. I'll go back to the doctor. Maybe he can do something else. So he goes back to this doctor, and the doctor says, well, we've got one more cure. Dress it up. Have fun with it. Let it be your friend, get to know it a little bit. Eric's kind of reluctant to that. I mean, it's been kind of its enemy for a little while, so. But he does it anyways. Marches straight to the tailor, gets a little suit made for him. Even Eric had to admit that he looked pretty nifty in that little suit. So he walks around with the little guy in the suit, and he thinks, man, this is pretty funny looking. I'm going to try out for a talent show or something. Senior talent night's coming up, and so he tries for that and gets it. And while he's performing, he's a great hit. In fact, he got first place in that talent show. So he's thinking, man, I'm doing pretty good. Maybe I should. So he goes try some local hot spots there, the night spots. And he does pretty good there, and eventually moves up to Las Vegas, Atlantic City, all the big ones. After a little while, a movie producer finds him, and he gets a movie. They call it Eric and His Growth. Okay. So make a movie, and he's doing a show up at Las Vegas. He's up there talking, and he sees one of the guys, one of the original guys that was there with him in that cafeteria, one of those many years ago. And he tells him, come see me after the show, backstage. So backstage, the guy comes back and he says, I know you look funny and everything, but anyways, I know you look funny and everything, but I know that you're going through some pain, and I know this guy. He lives way across the world, and he's pretty expensive, but he'll be able to cure you. So Eric goes, okay. So he tells him where to go, and Eric has to fly halfway across the world to get to this place. And he goes straight to this doctor, and he goes, he marches in, he goes, hey, I heard you can cure me. And he goes, yep, I'm the only one in the world that can cure this disease. He goes, really? He goes, how much does it cost? He said, nobody on this earth can afford it. Eric gets kind of shocked, Why'd you even bring me out here if I can't even afford it? He starts getting outraged, getting mad, so took all the doctor could to get him settled down. Finally gets him settled down, and he says, okay, there's this foundation, a long, long time ago, this rich guy, the richest man that ever lived, left this foundation to cure these growths. But the only thing you have to do is to accept that you have this problem and to take the money from the foundation. Eric says, at first he goes, okay, that sounds pretty easy. He starts thinking about it. He goes, man, I'm Eric Hairball. I'm a rich guy. I can go make enough money to pay for this, and 2 of them, really. So he goes, well, I'll just come back later after I got a little bit more money. The doctor says, it's not going to do you no good. But he goes out anyways. He goes, he doubles his time lot, and he makes another movie, Eric and His Growth, Part 2. Right? He really makes a lot more money. So he walks into goes back to the doctor's office almost a year later. He walks in and he starts the appointment by laying $3 million of cash right there on the operating table. He goes, is that enough money for you? Doctor says, no. Nobody can afford this operation. So he goes, well, there's got to be a way to make enough money. He goes, I'm going to come back and I'm going to get enough money. So he goes back and he starts investing in bonds and whatever. And he makes a lot more money. He triples the money that he had. He comes back with $9 million. Lays that on the table. He goes, that's got to be enough money. Doctor says, nope, sure ain't. All you have to do, why don't you just, listen. All you have to do is just accept this gift from the foundation. So he goes, now, I can make more money. He goes back out, and he's doing it. Right after a pretty hard night, he sits back down in his overstuffed chair. He has to have it specially stuffed for the pain from the growth, of course. And he sits down, slowly closes his eyes to relax, and stops breathing. Died. What started out as a cute, funny story has now become, in fact, a tragedy. And what makes it even more than just a cute story is the fact that all of us have this growth within us. First, it starts out like a toy. It's very pleasant, adventuresome, funny. The Bible's name for this growth is sin. And at the heart, here's what it really is. It's the fact that although we were created to have God in the very center of our lives, running our lives, that we, all of us, without exception, have rebelled and tried to run our lives instead. That's the basics of the disease. There are many symptoms of this disease, most of which are accepted by today's society, the culture around us. There are many ways of dealing with the disease. Try to cover it up. Try to psych yourselves into believing that it's not real. Finally, just live with it. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. None of these methods are true solutions. All the while, we waste our time, our money, our lives. We're just hurting ourselves until the point of death. Not just a physical death, but a spiritual death. A spiritual death that will eventually separate us from God, His mercy, His power, and His love. Try to imagine the diagnosis we're going to listen to. Is it the world's, or is it God's? Do you have growth inside of you? The Bible says you do. And until you're willing to accept that diagnosis and God's free gift, the cure for this disease, through faith in Jesus Christ, you cannot begin to do His healing work through you.